Disclaimer: the following is a dramatized fictional retelling of events. All characters will have been based upon real people, but with different names to hopefully avoid causing any panic or otherwise harming the parties involved. As such, all characters in the story are fictitious. I felt the need to add a disclaimer just so that I felt better about myself. Okay. It's been a long time, very long time, since so much as mentioned this tale. I always let Pops or Mom or Mary speak on it. They were the ones everyone would listen to more, and I couldn't stomach speaking about what I had seen. Not to mention the looks people gave me any time I talk about it. And yet, as the Reaper's knocking on my door, my bad habits are catching up to me. I figured I'd lay this story down on paper before my tar-tainted lungs give out completely. So, it was April 25th, 1973. We'd been living in Enfield, Illinois for as long as I remember. I was 9 at the time, while Mary was 13. Pops and Mom had left us alone for a few hours, and there was uh, uh, Mom had left us alone for a few hours as there was a city council meeting they had to attend. Mary and I had played a game of Monopoly together, but had since gone into our rooms. It would have been around 9. The sun had all but completely set when Sis and I heard it. A sudden scream that lasted no more than a single second came from the neighbor's backyard. We both darted out of our rooms, hairs on our necks sticking up. Mary quickly ran into the kitchen to grab a flashlight. We had a window in the hall facing towards the source of the noise, which I hurried to open up. In the darkness, there was nothing I could make out from the backyard, save for the silhouette of Carl's treehouse. As far as we knew, Carl's family was also at the city council meeting, so he would have been home on his own. I still remember the overpowering scent of iron coming through the window alongside the warm breeze. Though at the time, I think I was much more concerned with the sounds coming from the treehouse, snapping, crunching, like a heavy boot coming down on twigs in the forest underbrush, mixed in with ripping and squelching. I was frozen in fear by the time Mary came back with the best flashlight she could find. She pushed me a bit to make room for her in the window, shining the light out and toward the tree. It felt like time slowed. Though that glance at that thing was brief, it felt like it lasted for minutes, horrified and awestruck as we were. In that treehouse that Carl and I had played in not a day before, there it was. The light reflected off its slimy, gray skin, highlighting several hairs or quills jut- jutting out from its body randomly. One jutting out from its body randomly. It had 3 legs, we could see. Holding up a stubby body, it was bent over, gnawing and tearing at something. Almost as soon as the light hit it, it turned. 2 stubby arms stretched out from its chest, its hands having 6 digits, with large, dull claws on each one. Its face was large, with sagging wrinkles of skin reminiscent of a pug. 2 massive, flashlight-sized eyes glowing pink back at us, and its mouth, a wide, gnawing hellscape of jagged, glass-like teeth, stained red at that moment. In that very same hellscape we saw entrails, splintered bone, and what looked like one of Carl's shoes. Give me a second. Carl's shoes. Could see a crumpled heap of flesh on the floor of the treehouse, and one of the creature's feet stamping it down. It quickly swallowed what flesh was in and on its mouth as it turned to face us, letting out a deafening screech. I covered my ears and dropped down as it did this, while Mary quickly let out her own scream and slammed the window shut, locking it. Tears were welling up in my eyes, and I think I had started mumbling Carl's name under my breath. Sis grabbed my hand and pulled me back to my feet just in time to see the monster take a leap toward our house, smashing into our siding with a snarling hiss. Sis pulled me through the house and into our kitchen cupboard, gripping my hand as tightly as she could, hugging me close once in the safety of that cramped room. Listen to me, she said under her breath. You're going to be fine. I'm here. You're you're going to be fine. I remember being surprised by how calm she was, able to make her voice, even while she was shaken just as me. But, but Carl, he, what, what was that thing? I whispered. That was a very good whispering tone, Nathaniel. I whispered as we heard a loud scraping sound coming from the living room. I, I don't know, but, but we have to keep calm as she whispered back, being cut off by a particularly loud bang toward the opposite side of the house. Than where th- to the opposite side of the house than where the creature was before. It, I, it's trying to get in. It's going to kill us. It's. She put her hand over my mouth as another loud crashing sound came from the living room once more. No, listen, we're going to be fine. We just need to stay quiet. Mom and Dad should be back soon. As long as we keep quiet, we will be fine. She held me as tight as she could, doing her best to avoid letting out just how scared she was as well, even with her shivering. It felt like an eternity we spent in that pitch black room, both of us quietly crying, not moving at all the while the scraping, banging, and clawing sounds continued. Eventually, they started to be fewer and further between, right up until we heard the distinct sounds of Pop's old junker car driving up. We waited until we could hear Pop and Mom talking, calling out our names. Sis opened the door to find Mom in the kitchen. She turned to see us and quickly ran up to us, hugged us. Seeing that we were scared, Pop quickly came in after Mom called out. The air conditioner in the living room is all torn up. What happened? He yelled before realizing how scared Sis and I looked. A, a monster. It was trying to get into the house, Sis managed to meekly say. It, it ate him. Carl, it ate him. I managed to barely whisper as my stiff arms and legs continued shaking. Almost exactly at that moment, we heard another roar and more scraping towards the front door. Sis and I hunkered down, again screaming. Pops, while normally very skeptical, had all the reason he needed to see we weren't lying. He reached up into the top cabinet, pulled out his M1911 with two magazines. Tam, stay here with the kids, he said under his breath as he slipped one of the magazines in the pistol and pulled back the slide. Mom held us close as we heard the front door open. Again, the screech rang out as we heard 8 consecutive shots being fired. There was a high pitched hiss and then silence. For close to a minute, we sat there, too scared to move, quiet as mice, before Pops walked back in the kitchen. It's it's gone, he simply said before kneeling and hugging us all. Whatever that thing was, it's gone. It hit point blank, and yet it didn't drop. It just hissed and bounded off. He held us tight for a couple minutes before Pop got up and phoned the police. Mom pulled us up and started to take us into Sis's room. The last I heard before getting in there was Pops talking on the phone. Yes, well, y'all never gonna believe this one. The following months were hectic, to say the least. It felt like we would never be able to have a stable, normal family life again. Cops constantly trying to get more information from the two kids in trauma counseling, who were the only witnesses of the gruesome death of a 12-year-old. And the press wanted to get as many juicy details as they could as a full scale hunt for that thing started in earnest. Theories and speculation about what the Enfield horror was. Uh, Enfield horror, as they called it, could be. We heard tell about it being a mistaken bear, a hoax, an alien that the government was coming up, a communist super soldier. Hell, there was even one tabloid that proposed that it was actually a drugged up wandering hobo who was a cannibalistic murderer who drew great pleasure from killing, thus explaining the uh, third leg. Yeah, tabloids. After a big buzz and a couple of other sightings that didn't end with anyone getting hurt, the horse simply disappeared. Hasn't been seen since, as far as I know. Either way, as I lie here, choking and gasping for air, I feel like I can still smell the iron on that breeze, still see Carl's lifeless body, and still hear that thing's monster screeching. All I am left with is a hope, prayer, that the Enfield horror, no, my Enfield horror, never shows up on someone's doorstep ever again.